Okay, so in this video, we're actually going to work backwards. So given the graph or the table, we are going to find the equation and put it into vertex form. Then we also need to find the domain and the range. So remember from the last video, and this is video 2 of 2, so if you haven't watched video number 1 yet, make sure that you do that. That vertex form is that y equals a times the quantity of x minus h squared plus k. So first thing that you are going to do is identify some points that you already have on your graph. And you know that H and K is your vertex. So that vertex is this highest point here. So if I say what those points are, that is at 1 and then 3. So this is our vertex. And remember that this is H and that this is K. And then you're going to need some other point. It doesn't matter. I like using the y-intercept if it does cross at the y-axis and it's not your vertex, just because then one of your values is 0. But it doesn't really matter. So this is 0, 2. Now what you're going to do is you are going to take those, and so this is going to be an x and your y. And you're going to plug all these into your equation over here. So y is 2 equals, now none of these is an a, so we're going to keep a what it is. Your x, so 0, minus your h, so 1 squared, plus k, which is 3. So as you can see here, I've got everything but a. So that's what we are trying to find, is we are going to find a. So I'm going to start by subtracting 3 on both sides. So -1 equals a times 0 minus 1 squared. So 0 minus 1 is -1. Then -1 squared is a positive 1. So I need to divide by 1 to get rid of it over here, which is just -1 equals a. So once I have that, all I need to do now is write my equation. Now you still are going to use your vertex. So y equals the a, so -1, x minus h, so -1 squared, plus k, which was 3. And then they wanted our domain, which is always all real numbers. That's hasn't changed from when we did standard form. And then the range is y. So this point here is a max, so that means it's going to be everything is less than or equal to the y value of our vertex, so 3. Okay. let's try this one. So if I go through and label some points, I've got the vertex, which is at this 0, -5. And then you're going to need another point. It doesn't matter what point. So let's just pick this 1, -4. And just so that we know later when we are finding our range that our vertex is our minimum point. Okay, so let's go through and let's plug those into our equation. So we've got h, k, x, and y. So -4 equals a times x. So x is 1 minus h, so 0 squared minus 5. So I'm going to start by adding 5 to both sides. So 1 equals a minus 0 squared. So 1 minus 0 is just 1. And 1 squared is just 1. So when I divide by 1, 1 equals a. So I go to rewrite it. Y equals 1 times x minus 0 squared minus 5. Now here, if you remember from the last video, I said if they didn't have parentheses, then that meant that the h value of your vertex was 0. So we can actually rewrite this as y equals x squared minus 5. Because if I were to distribute this 1 in here, we would just have a 1 in front, which isn't going to change anything. But we still need our domain, which is always all real numbers, and our range. So y is greater than, because that's a min, or equal to the y value of our vertex, or the k, which is -5. Okay. So I want you to go ahead and do this one on your own. And this one is also going to have that same thing where you don't have to have the parentheses. So I want to challenge you to see if you can write both equations there. Okay. But then let's go ahead and do one of these. So first you need to figure out which point is your vertex point. So you're going to have to find where they are mirroring. So where the y values start to mirror is these points here and here. So that means that the point in between this one is our vertex point. So meaning that this is h and that this is k. And then you can pick any one of these other ones as your other point. So I like to pick one that's got a 0, so x and y. And now let's figure out if this is a max or a min point. So still looking at our y values, if I'm looking at this -7, then -6 is bigger than -7, and then -3 is bigger than that. So if they're getting bigger, that means that this is a min, because that's our smallest point. Where if they were getting smaller, that would be your max point. So we are still taking everything and plugging it into that y equals a minus h squared plus k equation. So y, we said, is -6 equals a times our x, so 0, minus 1 squared minus 7. So I'm going to add the 7 to both sides. So I've got 1 equals a squared. So 0 minus 1 is -1. And if you don't have to write all of these steps out, once you start to get a hang of it, if you want to do this step and this step all at the same time, that's completely fine. Then -1 squared divided by the 1, so 1 equals a. So y equals 1 x minus our h, so -1 squared minus 7. Then our domain is always all real numbers. Then our range, y is bigger than, because it's a min, the y value of our vertex, so -7. Okay. So I want you to go ahead and try this one on your own. Let me know if you've got any questions. I will talk to you soon.